Good afternoon, Jamaica. Good afternoon to the Jamaicans in the diaspora. We've joined Irish Jam in New York. What time do we join them? We join them at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. So we'll hail them up. They are going through some exciting times. Welcome to the program. This is Jamaica Live. We're on Bridge 99 every Monday from 12 noon to 2 p.m. We try to focus on issues that we think are not just of interest, but of importance to all of us as a people, as a nation. We delve into them. We try to get a better understanding. We talk with people who we think can help us to do that. And all of that is in an effort to better enable you, our listeners, to assess those issues for yourself and to come to your own conclusions. We don't dictate, we don't brainwash, we don't impose our views. We engage discussion. We allow various conflicting views to contend, because we know you're smart enough to decipher between what makes sense and what doesn't, and to form your own conclusions. Information is important. It's important in shaping our views and shaping our actions, because our actions are defined by the views that we hold. And therefore, we hope that this program, once a week, we hope that it brings some value to public understanding of the issues. That's what we are. That's what we're about. It's Jamaica Live on Bridge 99. The U.S. midterm elections are not yet over. They're still counting votes for a number of the seats. But the Democrats have retained control of the Senate and could in fact increase their seat count by one. Remember, last time around, the seat count was 50-50. 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans. And the Democrats had control only because whenever there's a tie, the vice president, who is a Democrat, Kamala Harris, she has a casting vote. So for the last 2 years, that's how the Democratic control of the Senate has been maintained. But they have so far won 50, with the last Senate race being declared in Nevada over the weekend. And of course, there's a runoff to take place in Georgia. In Georgia, they're low. America is peculiar, you know. Election laws are largely determined by individual states. And in the case of Georgia, their law says that if no candidate wins a majority, which means 50% plus one, then there has to be a runoff where any other candidate is eliminated and only the two top candidates are put on the ballot. So that runoff is to take place on December 6th. If the Democrats win that runoff, then they will control the Senate by a 51-49 majority. They won't need to bother the vice president to come and break a tie. Or they could, you know, if it happens that that some Democrat or some Republican breaks party line. But on the other hand, if the Republicans were to win the Georgia runoff, then they would be up to 50. So it would be 50-50. And Vice President Kamala Harris couldn't afford to travel too much. She would have to stay close to Washington in the event that her casting vote is needed. The Republicans seem set to take over the House. There's still some House seats that are still being counted. But based on the numbers I saw up to this morning, they are almost sure to take over the control of the House with a small majority. Small, by small I mean, probably can count them on the fingers of one hand. But when you look at the overall results of the midterm elections, that is not what was expected to happen. The party of first-term presidents normally suffer significant losses in midterm elections. On top of that, Joe Biden's approval ratings are low, in the 40s. On top of all of that, Americans are experiencing the highest increase in the cost of living in 40 years. Remember last week when we were on the program and we were discussing the elections? This was the day before the elections. One of my guests, Wayne Golding, told us he's based in Orlando, but when we spoke to him last week, he happened to be in Los Angeles. And he told us that the gas price in California was almost $6 a gallon. And there is nothing that turns voters sour more than rising prices. So almost everyone was expecting the Democrats to suffer a bruising defeat, a battering. The red wave, as they call it. It didn't happen. It just did not happen. Last week, the day before the elections, we had a number of prominent Jamaicans from the diaspora discussing the possible outcome of the elections and what it would mean for them up there and for us down here. We have invited them back today to help us to understand what accounts for the unexpected behavior of the voters. What that means for America going forward. What that means for Jamaicans living in America in particular. And for us here in Jamaica, because America is our most significant source of influence. It is our major trading partner. Our financial system is inextricably tied to the U.S. financial markets, and it is home to the largest segment of the Jamaican diaspora. Over 1 million Jamaicans now live in America. As I wrote in a column in the Jamaica Observer yesterday, these election results provide an opportunity for the Republican Party to rescue itself from the evil clutches of Donald Trump. I'm not mincing no words today. At this stage in my life, I call it as I see it. So many of those Republicans, including some of its leading figures, like Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz, allowed themselves to be duped, to be hoodwinked, to be mesmerized into believing in Trump's magic, into believing that he didn't really lose the 2020 elections. And all that they needed to do was to hang on to his coattails, kiss his ring, if not some other part of his anatomy, and they would be able to ride to victory. Well, if last Tuesday's results don't open their eyes to that foolishness, I don't know what can. These are supposed to be bright people, you know. I mean, Ted Cruz is a Rhodes Scholar. I'm not a Rhodes Scholar. But I can see through the Donald Trump nonsense. So what's wrong with Ted Cruz? What happened to his Rhodes Scholarship? What did it do for him? That him just running up and down a follow back of Donald Trump. Like he's some anointed shepherd. Many of the candidates that Trump installed were put there simply because they were loyal to Trump. It didn't have anything to do with whether or not they were popular among the voters. It didn't have anything to do with whether they were competent. What it had to do with is the fact that they spouted the election lies and the conspiracy theories that Trump fomented. Many of them lost their election. And for those that won, most of those that won were running in die-hard Republican seats that any Republican candidate would have won. But I ask the question, will the Republicans seize this opportunity? So many of their leaders seem to have forgotten the pair of nuts that they are supposed to have between their legs. I'm not talking a delicate talk today. Some of them who recognize the toxicity of Donald Trump decided that they can't fight it. And since they're not prepared to join it, they walked away. They retired. They decided they were not going to run again. It has been left to someone like Liz Cheney to stand up to him, to call him out, and face him down. She found a pair of nuts that she's not supposed to have. The men forgot theirs. The way forward for America is not going to be easy. The Republican-controlled House will have several extremists, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jim Jordan. Their mission and their agenda won't change. Their purpose will not be to find common ground to move America forward. And bear in mind that they're going to be operating in a divided Congress with the Democrats controlling the House and the Republicans, rather, controlling the House and the Democrats controlling the Senate. Their purpose, their aim, their objective is likely to be to disrupt and destabilize. Their plan is to restore Trumpism with all the noxious consequences that come with that. What about the Democrats? What do these election results mean for them? If I could offer some advice to them, they must guard against popping champagne and basking in glory. Sure, they have done better in these midterm elections than any party has done in, oh God, I heard somebody say the last time any first-term president's party did as well was in 1934. That's almost 100 years ago. The election results provide the Democrats with an opportunity to do a reset at a higher point on the mercury scale. They're not at the bottom. but they're not at the top either. They must look to the future. So much of the future of the Democratic Party is tied to the future of America. And they must recognize the enabling and facilitating role that history calls on them to perform. Joe Biden in particular must disabuse his mind about running for re-election in 2024. I heard him say this past week that he intends to run, but he hasn't made up his mind yet. By 2024, Biden will be 81 years old. For God's sake, give me a break. Which successful country you know of? Which successful country in the world has an 81-year-old running for the highest position of leadership? Let's get real. Joe Biden can secure his place in history by recognizing and accepting his transitional role in history. Maybe like John the Baptist. And not frustrate the succession that the Democratic Party and America needs. As I said yesterday in that Jamaica Observer column, America needs new leadership that can inspire its people to repair its identity, to rescue its threatened democracy, to reassert its cultural diversity, because that is what it is, and to reclaim its influence in the world. In facilitating this, Biden would make it his lasting legacy that historians would write about, and researchers 50 years, 100 years from now would pause to reflect on. The U.S. midterm elections, the results of those elections, what it portends, and why it matters to us. That is the topic for our discussion today. When we come back, we're talking today about the results of the elections held last week Tuesday in the United States. It's an important topic. We're very pleased to welcome back to the program, because he was with us last week, Mr. Wayne Golding, attorney at law. He's based in Orlando, but he's also a member of the Jamaica Diaspora Council. Wayne, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be back.
Tell me, Wayne, what are your feelings now? 6 days beyond last Tuesday.
Well, I think there is a certain comfort level that has come back into the country at large, not only for myself, because if you had followed all the pundits, I think we would have thought today or the last 6 days would have been trepidation multiplied to another level. But I think after the results, and based on something I thought about last week, that we cannot always follow the pundits, or we should not follow the pundits. We should just go with our own and this is exactly what happened. People really did not listen to the historical perspective that all the pundits were given.
How did they
got out there and vote? So it puts.
How did they get it so wrong, Wayne?
Well, I think they were just using the historical perspective, just going back with what has happened with incumbency administrations over the years.
Yeah, but they were doing.
And they thought.
Yeah, but they were doing soundings as well. So where did they mess up?
Well, polls are what they are. You get out what you put in, and the questions that were being asked. I think they felt that the economy was going to be the leading factor of people's minds, because they feel that people are always more concerned about their pocketbooks than social issues. And I think that's the idea of, for example, abortion played such a large part, because it brought out women and young people in record numbers. And I don't think they had bargained for that in terms of that being a polarizing issue to the point where it would bring so much different perspective to the table, and people were not concerned about the economy as much.
What I observed as well is that in the days leading up to the elections, I saw several polls where the future of democracy or the preservation of democracy ranked pretty low. And then when I saw the exit polls, Tuesday night, Wednesday into Thursday, the preservation of democracy ranked pretty high in terms of those persons who had voted. What made that difference? Was that Barack Obama?
I think a multiple set of factors made a difference, including coming out of President Obama. Because, I mean, once people were reminded that, look, your ability, your rights are on the table. Your right to vote is actually on the table. Your right to choose what happens with your personal life and your body is on the table. I think it hit a raw nerve. And when people got into that voting booth and saw that the choice that we're making was, yes, the price of milk went up 20 cents versus your rights, your individual rights to vote and your individual right as a woman to choose to have an abortion or not. I think they chose the latter because they realized what was more important when the reality actually hit them in the face, that this is personal to me. I think that's what you saw. Even in the Republican stronghold, I think a lot of people, it came down to their personal feelings about their personal rights versus a 20-cent increase in milk or increase in gas prices.
Tell me, do you think the results have done any damage to Trump's stranglehold of the Republican Party, or is he going to just flash it off as, just something that happens? Let's get on.
It off. He's gonna blame somebody else and say, I had nothing to do with the losses, which of course historically he has lost for the Republicans, the presidency, the House, the Senate. The only stamp that he has on the American political scene or administrative scene is the judiciary, which of course the court is now stacked with those conservative judges who I think played a part in handing this election to the Democrats, because as I said, the Washington issue came front and center and polarized because of the ruling of the court. I think for most people who support Mr. Trump or supported him in the past, you're going to have those who are going to peel off. But rest assured, under the quiet, because they haven't declared before, and it's only because of a loss now, you might hear some people saying, well, we might have an alternative, so they might choose not to support him either publicly or quietly. But I think they're still there, and they're there in large numbers, and people should still be aware and concerned, because there's no new set for what they have done and what they've actually put on the table. And actually, a number of Trump, I'd say, endorsed candidates actually won. So you'd still have a large amount of people. You can't really count them because they don't. A lot of them stay undercover, or they do not come out and say what he's doing. They disagree with. They actually just kind of go along.
But I noticed.
So I think it's all about opportunity for them.
I noticed, for example, this lady, I can't remember her name. You can catch me up. She's the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. I think she has Jamaican connections, huh?
Absolutely, yes, she is.
She was an ardent Trump supporter, in the past, but I saw on television yesterday saying that he has to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. Some of these people are what we call in Jamaica wagonists.
Yeah.
You know, when it looks like their team is on the decline, they'll jump ship. They're those people, and some of them are brave enough to say it publicly. But I don't even trust their public pronouncements because we've seen them do it before, and when the tides change or Mr. Trump finds a way to pressure them, they either recant or have a sudden loss of memory. And I don't know what would have changed with the other than the election results to let somebody say, well, he has to go, because they should have been saying that in the first place, because so many things happened prior to the elections, including January 6th, and they never came out and said that. So is it now because of an election loss and they're looking to consolidate and not lose any more power that they're saying these things? I still don't trust the pronouncements of these people.
You're spot on. The Trump of today is no different from the Trump that came down the escalator. It's the same Trump.
Absolutely.
His behavior is the same.
Absolutely.
His uncouthness is the same. So I mean, give him an A for consistency, because he has remained faithful to the Trump that introduced himself to the American people. What I've never been able to understand is why they embraced him. But having done that,
because there's this. The sheet was pulled off. He pulled off the sheet of the American psyche that still wants to hold on to power, that still doesn't believe that minorities have a place in the society and are qualified to be in positions of leadership. There are those people who still have that thought process, no matter how minorities excel and even become the president of the United States, and probably is one of the best presidents ever seen. They're still not convinced. They're still in that pattern that they cannot relinquish. And so when people of our color or ilk join these same people to criticize themselves, they're self-haters, and you're going to still have them. And that's why somebody like Mr. Trump will always have followers and detractors. It's the amount that determines the election. And I guarantee if he announces that he's going to run again, he's going to have his supporters.
But I've maintained for a long time, and I think I said it last week, that what Trump did was to arouse, awaken, embolden a part of America that had been hiding behind the curtain because they felt overwhelmed by the sentiment that has prevailed for the last half a century. And what Trump was to say to them, your cause is not lost. Step forward. You hate the Jews? Step forward. You hate black people? Step forward. In going forward, what is America going to do with that part of itself?
Well, I think what one of the things that they don't give him credit for, he also exposed how fragile the gains that have been made over the years have become, or they are.
Yes.
Comfortable with the idea that we had reached a place in time where everything was all right. Yes, have a black president. Yes, no, it's still the underlying thing here in this country. Because if you remember back in the days of Vietnam and Muhammad Ali, and Muhammad Ali saying, I see why I should be going abroad to fight these people who did me nothing, when here in my own country, I am not allowed to use the same bathroom, the same restaurants, go to the same schools, all of this stuff in a nutshell. And when we got certain rights codified by law to say, yes, Voting Rights Acts and all of that, people are saying, yes, we've gotten there, we're getting there. But all it takes is somebody like Mr. Trump to rile up. And we have a lot Trumps. We got a lot of Trumps 2.0 coming or in the media. I'm saying we're still in a fight. Now the fight within the Republican Party is going to be between the alligator and the snake, because now you have Mr. DeSantis, who won his re-election handily, that they're touting to be the next savior of the Republican Party. But everybody seems to be forgetting very quickly that he was one of Mr. Trump's most ardent supporters. So at this point,
not only that,
are we going to suffer from short memory again?
Not only that, I saw an ad that he had on television where he was proclaiming himself to be sent by God as a fighter. I'm terrified about these people who claim that, they have a fiat from God,
Well, if you look back at history, that has always been the platform that these people launch themselves from.
These are demagogues.
And and that is really why we have to still be on guard. We can't believe that this narrow victory for the Democrats, which was not expected, means that we are past the worst. We're still at that almost 50-50, where 50% of this country believes one thing versus the other 50, and what they are believing on the Trump side is still the same 50. You might have different faces, and they might have rejected, 51% might have rejected that philosophy. But it doesn't mean that you have a change, because the numbers are just about the same where they were when Trump ran for election.
But tell me, the American political system is supposed to be so dynamic. Why is it that I have a difficulty, and I pay a lot of attention to it, but why is it that I have such a difficulty in spotting somebody who I said, yes, give that one another 2 or 3 years, and that one is going to be on the front page? When I heard Barack Obama speak at the 2004 Democratic Convention. From I heard him, I said, see 1 year, so. But I'm having that difficulty now. I'm kind of looking at Josh Shapiro. I've seen him in a couple of interviews, and I'm very impressed. But I'm worried. Why is it that the system seems to be so constipated that people are just not coming forward in both parties?
Well, I'll tell you, they are there, but it's a function of what we call the market. You have to hit the headlines in order to be featured. And that is the sad part, because politics is no longer grassroots.
But
wait, out of your community.
Before you get to the headlines, though, I am looking for somebody who is espousing the kind of principles that would excite me if I were an American. The kind of ideas that says to me, this is a man that I believe I am prepared to follow. So, long before the headlines, I'm just not feeling that. And I don't see it on the internet, the social media. I'm just not getting a sense that there's somebody who has a grasp of the crisis in which American politics is now, and is saying to us, we can shake this up. We are better than this. We can move forward, and this is the way in which we should move.
Well, I haven't lost that faith, because, as I said, I'm on the ground in the local level. I hear a lot of people speak. I see a lot of young people who are involved, but they're not getting the views. They're not getting the microphone, at least not yet. I never lose hope in that, because you do have these great people who come from the background all the time. You see it in every election, you'll see it eventually. But I think the key is for us not to lose faith that there are those people around, because they're there. believe me, out of this population of 200 and something million people, they are out there, they're doing the work, they're making the difference, but they're just not recognized yet. It's just not in the media's interest or the media's eye to where you will see them on a national stage or international stage. But I have faith because, as you know, the first millennial was elected 25-year-old from my area here in Central Florida. And that gives us the idea that there are these young people out there and they're just not catching the media buzz just yet. But I have faith in that young people have not given up on being a part of the government, so to speak, or being a part of leadership or being put in positions where they can help to make decisions for a better place, because they're the drivers in this past election. If you look at the numbers, the percentage, 65% of the votes that came out, they said were young people.
Do you expect Trump to make his big announcement tomorrow?
You know what? I fully expect it. I could be wrong, obviously, but knowing him the way I do and what we've seen over the years, he has his own dog and pony show. No matter what's happening outside, he tries to control the narrative at all times. As long as he gets on stage, the press will be there, people will be following, people will be listening, and he knows that, and that's what he thrives off. You know, he can twist and turn any situation to his benefit, and so I fully expect him to use the limelight of losing to announce tomorrow.
That may be a goodbye kiss for Herschel Walker.
Well, he doesn't care about Herschel Walker, and that's what Herschel Walker needs to understand. You know, and looking at that race, you'll see, you know, you have two obviously persons who are of color running, and if you look at the quality, if you look at the resumes, you'll see who they'll want to choose over who. It's still disgusting that you have to be 100 times good as a colored person to be considered qualified, because they'll put you up against a rock stone and they'll vote for the rock stone. So, you know, I think this is a hard lesson, and Herschel Walker is playing his part. I don't know if he truly believes in what he's saying or what he's doing, but the comparison is so stark that it really lets you understand who these people are and who they will choose to put up to get into office to make control or to give control of people's lives. You know, so they really don't care about Herschel Walker. He's just a number. And at this point where it is clear that the Democrats have secured the majority in the Senate, I think you're going to see that result in the runoff elections.
Tell me,
where they're just not going to probably come out.
How do you explain the kind of fervor with which white, and I stress the word white evangelical leaders are sort of overwhelmed and intoxicated with Trumpism? They supported Herschel Walker vigorously against Raphael Warnock. Is it that they're just being transactional? So, in other words, if you are against abortion, you could be the devil himself, but I'm prepared to support you. Is that their position, or is it deeper than that?
Actually, it has been this historic, hypocritical approach that, if you remember back to the moral majority movement back during Mr. Clinton's days and their rabid criticism of Mr. Clinton and his lifestyle. And when you dug deeper into theirs, they were probably doing the same thing or worse. So sometimes, you know, sometimes you have people in positions of leadership.
Wayne, hold your thought. I have to take a break. Don't go away. I'm coming right back to you.
Absolutely.
We're talking to Mr. Wayne Golding. Not a relation to me. I don't want people mix him up and go bury him and fry him in my fat. But he's a very successful attorney, Jamaican to the bone, operates out of Orlando. Last week I spoke with him. He was in California. You're back in Orlando now?
Yes, I'm back in Orlando, back in town, and I must tell you, my trip to California again opened my eyes even more as to where Jamaicans are right across the world. I had the opportunity to attend an event put on by the Jamaican Awareness Association of California that does a lot of missions to Jamaica. But one thing I observed when I spoke to their membership was how many Jamaicans went from Jamaica straight to California from the 50s and 60s. And it amazed me how we travel so far to achieve so much sometimes. And steeped in the politics, they are steeped in what's happening in their community. They're involved. They're not just sitting around. And so the negative images that was portrayed of Jamaicans in the past, I think we are washing that away because, as you notice, even Maryland, the new governor-elect, is of Jamaican heritage. Westmore.
What you said surprises me because I would always believe that Jamaicans normally go to Florida or New York and then find their way to Los Angeles. I didn't know they were going there directly.
Directly. And I asked a lot of them, how did you get there? And they said, we actually had relatives here. And we came straight to California, straight to Los Angeles from Jamaica. And that amazed me too. But they're fully a part of their community, wherever they go. And now we're seeing it catching on to the point where, of course, they're interested in running for elected office. I think down in South Florida, we have about 21 elected officials of Jamaican background.
Well, we have to continue to big them up, because I noticed over the weekend, the ISA Foundation had a fundraising ball in New York to raise money, I think, for a children's hospital that they want to build in St. Anne. And they put out a release. It was on Saturday. And a release came out, I think, at Friday night to say, don't bother try buying no tickets because the whole thing is sold out.
Yes.
And there were some reports today that it was a fabulous show with Third World and so on. So we hail them up every time. Tell me, do you expect Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy to retain their positions of seniority?
I think they will. Kevin McCarthy is more questionable because even if they win the majority in the House, it's going to be a sort of an untenable position to be the leader from, because whipping votes and getting people in place, he might even get challenged for that position.
Well, he's going to have to cut so many deals, and those deals are not going to be all compatible.
Exactly, and his past rhetoric and performance, I don't think he's going to be very trusted, and that is a big part of being in leadership, where they're looking to trust somebody, and if somebody's going to cross the aisle to agree with you, you have to be a trusted person.
But who could successfully challenge him? Jim Jordan?
I don't think Jim Jordan is probably of the same ilk. But I think probably one of the younger members will most likely challenge him, because I don't think he has that iron hand, because he would be in a position of weakness. He doesn't have a supermajority of folks. And then again, the pro-Trump people are diminishing, so I don't think he has the carte blanche support from that point of view, because of course he's one of them who supported or has supported Mr. Trump to the death.
But he has been wobbling. He's not considered to be a genuine blue-eyed bona fide. He's not trusted.
Yes, and that's a key, trust. From both sides, he doesn't. I don't think he has that trust. I fully expect him to be challenged. By who, I cannot really say right now, because they have a deep bench. And again, some of those people have not gotten the exposure. But once somebody puts their hat in the ring, with him, I think he's going to have a difficult path ahead winning. And even if it does win, if they become the majority, because that's even not settled yet, believe it or not.
Does Mitch McConnell have enough IOUs in his pocket to protect him?
Yes, I think he does. I think he does. I'm pretty confident that he will go back. You know, unlike McCarthy, he has a track record of being that conservative Republican and somebody that I think most of these Republicans, if their hearts have shifted, they're saying they'd like to return to the days of the conservative movement that McConnell came out of. The old-fashioned Republicans, if you want to call them that, not the MAGA Republicans. So I think he will probably retain his position moving forward. But it's going to be a position of weakness too.
Do you think that with the election results being what they are, do you think that he will now pick up a little Liz Cheney virus and find some nuts between his legs?
No, absolutely not. He's one of those persons who will oppose just to oppose. They want to see no. You see, they've been bitten so hard by the Barack Obama win. They still have not recovered from that. And so their attitude will be moving forward. We will do anything to sabotage success, even at our peril. And that's been their behavior over the last 12 years, where they have voted against the interest of the American people because they want, genuinely, and people probably won't say it this way, but they want the Democratic government to fail. And it's a shame because a lot of the things that President Biden had put on the table, they torpedoed it. But there are a lot of things that they put on the table that actually President Biden put on the table that actually were successful. And this was one of the failures, I think, of the electorate in one sense, was to recognize, because the Democrats tried to emphasize the success of the Biden administration. But as usual, the Republicans had a very good messaging, anti-success messaging, which was not true. And they were pointing to gas prices, they were pointing to inflation and all of these things just to detract from the success. But the success is there. The proof is in the pudding if people want to see it.
And do you think that, elder statesman like Mitt Romney, I believe his heart is in the right place, but do you think that the election results will give him a little more influence and authority?
I would hope so. I would hope the election result will embolden those people who genuinely in their heart, because you can't paint everybody with the same brush. But the political climate and political circumstances, if you want to survive, you have to be very strategic. And, obviously that's what these politicians do sometimes. But I think this election result will give them the hope that people will come back under that former Republican tent that was conservative, that had a sense of duty to country, that had a sense of economic responsibility, and, expand their tent also, because one of the things you noticed in this election was that there were a lot more minorities who were given the green light to run as Republicans.
Yes, I noticed that. What's likely to happen on the Democratic side? Is it going to be a Nancy Pelosi or going to be a Hakeem Josephs?
I think it's going to be a Nancy Pelosi if she decides to run again, because one has to give her credit. She has ruled with a steady hand, and you can be sure of what she's going to do. She does not waffle. And I think even though she's up in age, and I heard you mention that about the age of some of these politicians, her experience speaks volumes. And I think that, at least for the next 2 years, they can't lose by having Nancy Pelosi there as a leader, because she's a brilliant strategist.
No, I have a lot of respect for her, but none of us last forever.
True, but you still can't cast people aside just based on age. Performance is really what it should be, and I think we're going to have a very challenging time in the next couple of years.
Don't let Donald Trump hear you say that.
Well, you have to have age and brains, remember that. They go together.
Wayne, I gotta go. I'm up against the break. Thanks a whole lot for coming on today. Long to see you.
I appreciate it.
Next time you're in Jamaica, give me a shout. I'll buy you lunch.
I'll shout you before that, my cousin. I'm going to call you my cousin. Although you're disowning me. I'm telling everybody, well, yourself and Mark Golding, we're all cousins. So
go on,
where it happens, I don't know.
Go about your business. Wayne Golding, stalwart Jamaican in the diaspora, operating out of Orlando. We're up at 1 o'clock. We take the break. We'll be back shortly. We're linking now with Irwine Jam in New York. Hope to pick up Beauregard shortly, because Irwine Jam is going to be with us for the final hour of the program. We're doing a review today of the results of the U.S. midterm elections that were held last Tuesday. We're focusing on it. Last week we were sort of postulating what the implications of the outcome would be for Jamaica. And at that time, all of the predictors, the pollsters, the pundits, the political analysts were suggesting that the Democrats were going to get a whopping in the elections. Well, they didn't get a whopping. More people voted Republican than voted Democrat. When I last looked at the figures, there was a swing of about 5% to the Republicans. But certainly in terms of the balance of power in the Senate, in the House, the Republicans seem to be likely to take control of the House by a small majority, a handful of seats, maybe 4 or 5 or 6. The Democrats have retained control of the Senate. And if they win the Georgia runoff in December, they would in fact control the Senate, even without the casting vote of Vice President Kamala Harris. In addition to that, the Democrats seem to have done well at the governor level. They won a number of governor races where the position was previously held by Republicans, like in Maryland, where Wes Moore, who is of Jamaican extract, his grandparents, or certainly his grandmother, was Jamaican. And then the Democrats also won the governorship in Pennsylvania, and I think a couple of others. And they have also done well at the state level. Is it Michigan? Michigan, I think, where they now control both the Senate and the House at the state level. So it's not the wipeout that many people were expecting. And in fact, what normally happens when you get into a midterm election with a first-term president. So this week we went back to this issue to try to see if we can get an understanding of these results, what influenced them, and importantly, what do they mean for America going forward? Because I've been concerned. I really have been concerned about what has been happening in American politics, what has been happening to American democracy. I kind of get a sense that this is where Jamaica was back in the 1970s. We used to have serious problems with our electoral system. We used to have serious problems with our politics. Our politics was violent, full of vitriol, full of bitterness and hatred. And give God thanks. somehow we managed to find the maturity to sort of move forward from that. I don't tell you that we're perfect. No, we still have a whole heap of nonsense that go on in our politics. I mean, we had some statement from a friend, Errol Warmington, last week about Mark Golding. That don't really have no place in our politics. And Labour Party should know better than that, because Labour Party suffered when the same kind of diatribe was used against Edward Seaga. We mustn't use it against Mark Golding. I mean, criticize Mark Golding for what he says, what is the policy proposal that he put forward. But we're past the stage now where you start attack people because of their color and their origin. His father wasn't born here. Father came from England, but his father made one hell of a contribution to Jamaica. This was right after the polio outbreak, and he was at the head of trying to help polio victims to find a life. Many of them couldn't walk. Many of them needed to have prosthesis installed in order for them to be able to move around. That he left a hell of a legacy. We mustn't spit on that. But we're discussing the U.S. election today, and I believe that New York is online with us now. Irwine, Beauregard.
Good afternoon, Mr. Golden.
Big man, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How's everything with you?
You voted last week?
Yes, sir.
That's good. How is America now coming to grips with the results of the elections?
Well, I think most of America is happy with the turnout so far, in terms of what they have seen and how the Democrats did in this year's election. Even though the president right now, a lot of people would say he's not a popular president, but they feel like he have accomplished a lot in the little bit of time that he's been there. And, people are giving him some more time and some more chances to get things done.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We've been discussing it today to try to see if we can understand what made the difference this time, because this is not normally how midterm elections with a first-term presidency go.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been talking to some people trying to see if we can interpret
Yes.
What this says for America and what this says for America's future.
Well, it should be good for the economy going forward. Inflation and things of that nature. We see that the president is now going to be having a big meeting with China today. So, we'll see the outcome of that and the discussions, things that they spoke about and how we can work together moving forward.
But I noticed, Beauregard, that a Trump-appointed federal judge has scuttled the student loan relief program that Biden had put forward.
Wow.
What's going to happen there? Because last time I checked, I think over 1 million people had applied.
Yeah, a lot of people were also depending on this situation to, just take care of the past bills and loans that they had to pay for. Not sure how they're going to handle it going forward, but when it comes to Donald Trump, I think that this election proves, that America is ready to move away from, thinking of Donald Trump. What everybody went through the last 5 years with Donald Trump, 6 years. I think that this election proves that they are ready to move away from that Trump era.
Well, I don't hide my feelings. I hope so too. I'm not prepared to bet my next month pension on it, but I hope so too.
Right.
Nice to hear you. What's the weather like?
Well, we're in the lower 40s today.
You can keep that. If temperature ever went into the lower 40s in Jamaica, schools closed, businesses shut down.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But, we know how to angle it over this side. We put on clothes when we need to, take off when we need to. So
I see what you mean.
We just dress for the weather.
Just keep warm.
All right.
We're hoping to welcome now Dr. Karren Dunkley. She was with us last week. She's the Diaspora Council member, I think, for the Northeast. She lives in Pennsylvania. Dr. Dunkley, are you there? No.
Yes, I'm here. A good day to you, a pleasant day to you, former Prime Minister Bruce Golding. Thank you so much for having me, and certainly greetings to you and your listeners.
Let me just thank you for coming back on, because we spoke about elections last week, and I wanted to hear from you know what do we make of the results? I mean, people like me, I don't know about you, but people like me, can I now exhale?
Yes, but a slight exhale with caution, Mr. Golden, because we have to really analyze what has happened in America. And you stated so eloquently that this midterm result is unusual, because we would recall that in 1994, for Clinton and Bush in 2008, Obama in 2010, 2014, and Trump in 2018, we saw significant losses in both the House and the Senate. And this is unusual for this midterm result. It's cautious because people love Donald Trump. I don't want people to think that people don't like Trump. I don't want us to get into a comfort zone. That is not the case.
What accounts for the results, Karren?
It's complex, but the simplest thing is this election, this midterm, turned out to be a referendum on democracy. The Democrats shied away from putting democracy on the ballot and focused on the bread and butter issues, inflation, 32% in the exit polls, concerned about the 8% inflation, education. Immigration was also an issue because the Republicans have shaped the narrative. What has led to these results? And of course, reproductive rights, right? So two things. Americans believe 71% of Democrats in the exit poll by NBC stated that they believe that democracy was threatened. And when they recognize, if you look at Florida, Florida is a case study in this election because they wired Florida to win. And it cannot be that America, that is supposed to be the bastion of democracy, where countries around the world model, when you talk about democracy and freedom and human rights, you look to the United States of America, but yet still you're coming out of a Trumpism where you have these seeds planted and you have so many states discounting the votes of especially black people, asking for their voting rights to be restricted, gerrymandering districts like they did in Florida. Look at Los Angeles, where you had who should be our allies, Hispanics, actually gerrymandering and redistricting to deny blacks their right to vote. So what accounts for this election is that democracy was on the ballot and also the reproductive rights.
But pause there, Karren, because in the couple of weeks, in the 2 weeks leading up to the elections, I saw several polls which suggested that this democracy issue was not in the top 3 of concerns of voters. What is it that? But I saw the exit polls that you are referring to. What is it that made the difference in the last few days leading up to the election? Was it Barack Obama?
No, I would say maybe, but let me not say a hard no. I think it's a mix of issues. I think first of all, Biden came out and stated, he conversed with the American people, and he expressed to them that, yes, we know that the economy is of concern, but we have an even bigger concern where our way of life is threatened. And I'm asking you, you've given 2 years to allow us, is to give us the benefit of the doubt and to walk with us to preserve democracy. And I think that the Democrats listened because voter enthusiasm for Democrats was actually lagging behind the Republicans. It was after he came out as president, commander-in-chief, and had this specific request that the Democratic base mobilized. Generation Z, let me tell you, they organized around reproductive rights because this is one demographic that we had not paid attention to. And they also helped the Democrats to deliver a win and not to have a red tsunami. It's not even a ripple anymore. We're just waiting to see now what happens with the House.
What is likely to happen going forward? Because there's still the possibility of the U.S. falling into a recession. And I saw some projections from some economists who I consider to be very credible, that while the recession is not going to be deep, it is likely to last for 2 years. If that is what America is facing leading up to the next presidential elections, what do the election results mean? A, for Trumpism. B, for the Democrats. Are we going to see some kind of recalibration? Are we going to see some new leadership emerging? What can we expect going forward? Or is it, I mean, if you end up now with the Senate that is controlled by the Democrats and with the House that is controlled by the Republicans, as the indications suggest, are we looking at a, lick down, mash down?
We clearly, yep, we have a divided. There's no doubt that we'll have a divided Congress. For sure we will.
I know, but we have had divided Congresses before.
Right.
But you had leadership like, Bob Dole, and you had leadership by, like former speaker there, I can't remember his name, the one with the big bushy head. And they were able to find common ground. But I don't get a sense that the Jim Jordans of this world and the Kevin McCarthy's of this world and the Mitch McConnells of this world, I don't get the impression that they are interested in anything that they can agree on.
They are not, and here is why that matters. And you know what? Let them continue. Let them continue. They are building a house on hate. When we saw Mitch McConnell, when he blocked Barack Obama's nominee in 2016, this is when good-thinking Americans, people of sound mind, recognized that this Republican Party, remember now, this is a new set of Republicans because the party of white supremacy was historically the Democratic Party, and then you had a shift around FDR coming out of the Great Depression. So this Republican Party, they're building on hate. However, the American people, I think, are opening their eyes. This is why I said, you asked, could you exhale? I said a slight exhale. Because here is what we know. Trumpism is not dead. It's going to be more elegant. And it's being more elegantly stated in none other than Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is more articulate than Trump. He is not seen as erratic or as lunatic as Trump. And so he is more palatable to this base that says that immigrants are responsible for crime and for drugs and border security issues. Of course, these are real concerns. But we can't wholesale say that black people and immigrants are the dregs of society in America, should go back to pre-Jim Crow. This is what the Republicans are standing on.
But
this
Karren,
is the Tea Party working.
Karren, he was running a TV ad up to last week where he said that he was specially chosen by God as a fighter for a time like this. Anytime a man tell me that he was specially chosen by God, I get frightened. I'm afraid of him. Because when God choosing somebody, when God choosing somebody, God normally send me a message and say, "Let's not follow that man because that's the man that I want you to follow."
Former Prime Minister Bruce Golding, they said if we don't laugh at these things, we cry. And this is the unfortunate ignorance and arrogance of Christian evangelism. Why Christian evangelism? It's dangerous because then they justify their hate, and they justify their positioning for power by saying that it is ordained by God. Let us not forget that these are the same individuals, the same sentiment where they used to justify chattel slavery by saying that blacks is ordained by God that we should be slaves. Here is what America needs to do, and the Democrats now have to be careful because we have to look to 2024. We do have an opportunity moving forward, and I say we, and I use we collectively because I am a registered independent. And I think the Republicans have lost an opportunity where they could have engaged independents, such as myself, around their level of hate and animosity towards others, this xenophobia that's bearing root. So here is what the Democrats need to think about. The Democrats should not spend the next 2 years doing petty squabbles between the moderates of the party and the left of center leaders. That will be a problem, because here is a question we're asking. If not Biden in 2024, then who? And we cannot answer that. The Republican Party can answer. If not Trump, then who? Because they have really said to Trump, we want to distance ourselves from you, even though 125 election deniers still won, 44 lost races, but people must remember that 125 election deniers have won. So the Democrats cannot squander the 2 years to 2024 with internal party confrontations. We must think through the ongoing inflation. You spoke about bipartisanship. Let us not forget that Biden built his career on bipartisanship. What Biden has that Barack Obama did not have is he's a white male. And white men, if you look historically at America, when it suits their collective interests, one or two, they will come together for the good of their country. They have to tackle the instability in the labor market. It goes back to immigration. And we do see, based on the poll numbers, that we have bipartisanship support for immigration only because the farming states, the business owners in these red states are in favor of some pathway, some access to get labor into the agricultural sector. And of course, crime. Crime is an issue. And then, of course, we have the geopolitical issues, the war in Ukraine, and this anti-business sentiment that Democrats have to be careful that they're not labeled as anti-business, because at the end of the day, we recognize that it's business who fund elections, and Ron DeSantis is actually seen as a darling of big business. So for the next 2 years, we need to focus on that as a people. But
Karren,
we will not deliver these Republicans to the presidency. We will not deliver, not this group.
Karren, let's be practical. Let's get real. I remember in 1980 when Ronald Reagan was running. He was 69 years old. He would have been the oldest person to contest the election for president. And I remember he had to spend a lot of time defending his age. 69. In 2024, Biden is going to be 81. What are we talking about?
Yes. So you raise a good point.
Hold on, no. When I'm 81, I don't expect to be making my own coffee. I expect somebody going to bring it to me, because I don't. That's too much energy for me. That's too much effort. When is the Democratic Party going to get real and recognized? You know, I give Biden his credit, you know, and his due. I mean, I have a lot of regard for him. He has been a steady hand throughout all the years of his career. But one of the critical assets of leadership is that you must know what your role is. And I see Biden's role as transitional. He came about at a time when America's democracy was under threat in a way that I have not seen it, certainly in the time that I've been following American politics. He needs to create the pathway forward. And that pathway forward, the problems that America has to solve in order to repair its democracy can't be done in 2 years or 5 years, or it's going to take a long time. We're going to have to reincarnate, if not the body, but certainly the spirit and the philosophy and the commitment and the perceptiveness of a Martin Luther King. America is going to have to spend the next 10 or 15 years repairing the damage that Trump has done, Trump and his allies have done. Biden can't undertake that job. What he needs to do is to make sure that he facilitates the emergence of somebody. And I don't know who that person is. I will tell you, and I've said it before, and maybe I'm going too far, but I am very impressed. The couple of interviews that I've seen of him, I'm very impressed with your new governor. Very, very impressed. He sounds like somebody who...
is that Westmore?
No, man. Pennsylvania.
Or Josh Shapiro.
Yes.
Okay, Josh Shapiro. Former Prime Minister. I think that the establishment will see Josh Shapiro as a newcomer. I think in terms of Democratic lineage to the presidency, certainly the vice president may take a shot at it, right? And then we'll have to see where she stands in terms of popular vote and the issues.
Karren.
Pete Buttigieg is another popular figure,
Karren.
but his sexuality, I don't see them ready
Karren,
for an openly gay president.
who Josh Shapiro is such?
Yes, I think it's Senator Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts. I would not be surprised because she remains a presidential hopeful, and especially to make history as the first female president. I think she's somewhere in her 70s now. I would look to Gavin Newsom. He is in his 50s, and I think that being from California, it's a big state. You look at the Electoral College, I think certainly that Gavin Newsom and California with the Electoral College and being able to carry all of the check the boxes, but the charisma that we need after Biden coming out of to your point, a recession. We're in a recession. I don't even think we're waiting to be in a recession. It would appear to me that we're in a recession. I think Bernie may be too old, but I would not be surprised if Bernie says, hey, I'm going to give it's a third time a charm. And then what about the squad? Where do people like Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, where do they sit? Where do they sit? But I think Josh Shapiro may be seen as a newcomer.
Well, I hear you. We'll have a lot of time to evaluate and to, But thank you very much, Karren Dunkley, one of our stalwarts in Pennsylvania. Big up lady of the Jamaican diaspora. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so very much for having me. One love and walk good. Freedom. The fight is for freedom. Thank you.
Love you, girl. Today we're talking about the U.S. midterm elections, the results. Last week we discussed the elections before they happened. This week we're talking about the elections after they happened, so we know what the outcome has been so far. I say so far because they're still counting votes in a couple of House seats and perhaps some other races as well. So we're trying to get today the perspectives of the people we spoke with last week, how they feel about the results, what are the implications for them up there, for us here, for America going forward. And I'm very pleased now to have on the program Mr. Irwine Clare. He's the unofficial Jamaican ambassador to New York. Ambassador Clare.
Hello, sir. I did not get the credentials, the passport. What else goes with it again? Yeah. Former Prime Minister.
Listen,
you should know. What?
All you need is your ID that say your name Irwine Clare. And people will know that is Jamaica.
Okay, sir. I thank you very much for that vote of confidence.
Tell me something now. Last week when I spoke with you, you sounded like you were on the verge of booking a one-way ticket back to Jamaica. Have you cancelled the reservation?
No, I never cancel any reservations to Jamaica. I'm always ready. By the way, Beauregard is on his own about this 40 degrees here. Anything under 70 degrees I have problems with. That's why I'm always packed and ready to go.
What you saying? I wonder how many underclothes you have on today.
Not as much as Oliver would have dressed when he was coming to America the first time.
You can keep that,
Yes, indeed. But last week, you're absolutely correct. It was a touch and go. It just goes to show you also to the power of media, because as you're well now aware, you'd see the people in media saying they didn't say this, and where was that coming from? When you look back at what they were saying, is exactly what caused people to have a lot of angst last week.
But it's not just the media. I mean,
I know.
The pollsters went out there.
Yes.
They asked people questions. How is it that they just didn't read the mood right?
Well, they'll tell you that they were asking the questions to the wrong set of Republicans or to the wrong set of people. Yeah, and there lies the whole situation. It tells you at the end of the day, Mr. Golding, that the decision will always be in the hands of the electorate. It is not, as you said, it's not a spectator sport. You know, and it's not a sport for the naivety. You know, it comes down to people going out and making that difference. You can't stay in your comforts of your home and decide what takes place. One has to go.
Well, explain to me, Irwine. I mean, apart from the tradition that we have, which we have to recognize and respect, because first-term presidents, their parties normally suffer a battering.
Oh, yes.
In midterm.
Shellacking according to Barack Obama.
Yeah,
yes.
so you have that as a historical situation.
Yes.
On top of that, you are now experiencing the worst inflation America has had in 40 years. Now, if you were to tell me about making a cocktail for disaster,
that would be it.
That would be it.
And add-in, you also had a president with one of the lowest rated. Okay. So here goes, sir. It tells us that there are some issues that obviously are more important to the American people than the economics. We have always said American vote economics. And that's the whole foundation of what democracy stands for. Because the issues that stood out here would have been the whole situation of the rollback of abortion rights, the whole situation of our democracy, and how some of these persons who are championing the red wave, how they dealt with persons in a civil manner.
But Irwine, again, I don't know if they got it wrong, but when I carefully studied the polls, several polls leading up to the election, and the economy was at top of the list, but issues like democracy and abortion were way down the bottom.
Yes.
Migration was weighing more heavily.
Yes.
So is it that they misread, or is it that in the last couple of days, the message that Biden and particularly Obama were carrying
resonated,
started to penetrate?
Yes, that too. But remember too, when the Supreme Court decision about Roe versus Wade came down, there was a significant increase in voter registration, especially among women. Now, that is not to say that it didn't taper off, but don't forget that factor played heavily. A lot more people now were in the whole voting record and are now participating. And when you see the participation levels, all the numbers have not yet been chronicled and all that, but you'll see that those numbers played into it as well, and there may be a factor that our pollsters ignored.
Have the results injured Trump? And if so, how badly?
Well, it's an understatement. It injured a lot of our Republican friends who have good friends in Jamaica too. I mean, Ted Cruz is one of the big losers too, and you know his connections with friends in Jamaica. It has injured him significantly. I mean, to the point now where it has, when you can pick up a New York Post and you see the Post ridiculing Donald Trump, that tells you. Because the New York Trump was the organization that supported him ever since he walked down that aisle in Trump Plaza. And when you can see the folks within the Fox News Bureau turning against Donald Trump.
Well, I was watching a panel discussion program on Fox last night, and I had to double check to make sure that I was not on a wrong channel.
That's right. And the very things that would have been engaged in the past, where this person has always put himself above party and country. These are the same things they're now echoing. How can these persons now be putting themselves above party? Now, and several months ago, you'd have asked these persons the same question, and they'd have been coy to it. They'd have supported, no hands down, no questions asked.
Is he going to make the big announcement tomorrow?
I hope he does.
But if he does, I mean, some people have suggested, and it's a plausible suggestion, that if he does, that is like driving a nail into Herschel Walker's coffin.
That too, yes.
But some people suggest that he's going to do it because he feels that it is the best safeguard that he can get, best protection he can get against the legal challenges that he faces.
It buys time. But I don't think that's going to stop the DOJ from doing what they have to do, and whatever that is. But the point is here is that the decision itself, and by extension what he just said just now, just shows to show you that he puts himself first. It's not a country here for him. It's about himself. He's willing to blow up the whole bridge, although he knows he needs a bridge to cross over. He's willing to blow up the whole bridge.
Is there anybody in the party now? Because Liz Cheney is on the outside. Is there anybody in the party who is prepared to shake him down?
Well, there are many, and I think you're going to see them come out of the woodwork soon. And these will be the persons closest to him. You know, and DeSantis, of course, is the up and go guy. I hear that the Tim Scotts of the world have interest, and these are all persons who were very close to Donald Trump.
Did you see that TV advertisement that DeSantis was running?
Oh, there is? Oh, my Lord. You mean the sanctimonious? Really?
No, man. He ran a TV ad with a whole heap of, sacred music.
My Lord.
And a voice sounding from it coming from the heavens, saying that, a time like this, God needs a fighter, and God chose a fighter.
And wonder
they don't mention DeSantis' name, but they have DeSantis' picture.
Well, that's...
Anytime a man starts telling me that God sent him to rescue me, I run.
Well, there are people who believe in that philosophy, sir, and have managed to hold the United States in ransom for several years, and are very significant in the voting columns for many.
What about the Democratic Party? How are they going to move forward?
Well,
I keep making the point, and I make no apology. I have a lot of regard for Joe Biden, lot of regard. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if I were his advisor, I would say to him, Joe, Master Joe, Uncle Joe, 2024 you're going to be 81 years old. What you doing in that race? What you need to do is to spend the time now, the next 2 years, fixing up America's problems as best as you can. The inflation and
prepare the way.
And prepare the way. Right?
True.
Allow, don't stifle the process.
Yes.
Facilitate the process. Don't pick nobody. Nobody wants you to kind of handpick anybody but allow people to emerge. Give the Democrats 2 years to identify somebody who can take that baton from you and take it effectively over the line.
And that's fair. But let's back up. But you have been a prime minister before, and usually that kind of pragmatic chatter don't come from persons who are in the office. For real. I mean, that's just how we look at it, Mr. Golding. And I think deep down, Joe Biden knows that he has not made a decision. But the point is that I think the Democrats are in a situation now where they have to have somebody ready. And the two persons, in my estimation, that comes out to be Newsom out of California. He has indicated that he will not run if Kamala Harris says she's not running. And I don't think Kamala Harris is in that position. Well, I can't say that. But Kamala Harris is also a potential. The other person is Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, who has had some track record in this. People like Josh Shapiro are probably good vice presidential candidates. But those are the two persons. I
mentioned Josh Shapiro to Karren Dunkley a short while ago, because I was very impressed in a couple of interviews that I saw of him. Mm-hmm. But then she went on to make the point that America is not ready for a gay president.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that.
I wasn't aware of Josh Shapiro's identity there.
Neither was I.
But then you're mentioning
Pete.
Pete, yeah.
Well, he was on the campaign trail before. I'm way past what America is not ready for, Mr. Golding, because America has the first female lesbian governor there in Massachusetts. All right. I don't look at these things from that perspective anymore. I look at the person who comes to the table with the best wherewithal to do the job. My personal opinion about that remains my personal opinion.
Yeah, but I think I'm anxious to see that debate take place. I'm anxious to see, the ferment. I remember when I saw Barack Obama speak at the 2004 convention, I think it was. Mm-hmm. I immediately said, before any commentator,
this was president,
I immediately said, keep your eyes on this man. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I had doubts at that time because I said, his color is going to be a problem.
Yes.
But my God, look at what he did.
Yes, indeed, right? indeed.
As a matter of fact, it's him caused all of this problem you don't even know.
Anyway, listen, I know we're coming there, but listen, I want to share some of it back to where Jamaicans live now, because that's very important. Now we heard about Westmore and the Attorney General, Mr. Brown, there in Maryland, which is a state where we have our control. But when you look at the whole situation in New York stands out now as the state that probably will cause the Democrats not to be in control of the House of Representatives. A blue state, considered a blue state, can almost be called purple.
What went wrong?
I think when you look at, and just some history here, sir. Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Democratic Party was at one point considered the most powerful of all democratic machinery in the United States of America. No longer is it that way today. Ever since the Clarence Norman, the Backland, and all that, the demise, the scandals, etc. Today it is led by a Haitian person of Haitian stock. There has been significant, it's not cause of our own, but it has been happening over the years. It has kind of withered away as far as its sting, its venom. It's no longer as powerful.
Why, Irwine? Why?
Because I think it still is populated with people who have stayed in positions too long. I think they have become complacent. They have gotten caught up in scandals after scandals, and as such, people who should be involved are no longer involved.
What happened to the Jamaicans up there? Why they don't step up?
Well, and that's a very interesting situation. We have lost the kind of political impact we had around the Clark era. We still have one or two here or there, but not in the force that we have had. I don't know the answer for that. Some of the organizations that had more political based foundation are no longer. You find now most of our organizations are social organizations geared towards fundraising of the sort. So they are 501c3. So their politics is not there. And when you don't have structures like those that you can have a foundation from, it's going to be very difficult for an individual representing our Jamaican stock or even any island stock to step out.
If the Caribbean community in New York were really to come together, well, we have problem coming together in our own region, let alone in New York. But if the Caribbean community, who all face the same challenges and issues, if they were to really take
potent force,
could they make an impact?
Of course they can. Remember, let's not kid ourselves. On Labor Day, we bring out the most people for any public display. In fact, it's a revelry, but it's a platform where every politician tried to be at. So if we use it as an example, I don't know why we can't build from that. We have seen our Haitian community have made more serious inroads than the English-speaking Caribbean community. And they're doing things on behalf of themselves, because sometimes you wonder, it becomes a Haitian situation when it's for Haiti, but when it's for the individual Haitian community, we don't seem to have that collaboration between the English-speaking Caribbean folks and our Haitian brothers. And I think our Haitian brothers are leading the way and may be the flag bearer right now. And they need to really bring in the rest of the Caribbean with them. But somehow we don't seem to get it together. Very functional, though, I must say. We have the most churches around town.
How strong is the Haitian component in New York compared to the Jamaican?
I would say right now they're at the helm. Because when you consider...
I'm talking in terms of numbers.
Population, yeah. I think Haitian population is larger than Jamaican. I think...
Is that right?
Yes, I think they are just about there. Very potent, very strong, very powerful. And you find that they have managed to coalesce their political base. And that's kudos to them.
How are they doing economically?
Economically, yes, in certain communities. We find right here in Queens, areas, pockets that are controlled by, the businesses are Haitian. In Brooklyn, when you start having communities naming streets after your nation, then it's an indicator of power.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes, they have managed to coalesce, and they have their differences too. They have managed to coalesce. They have more elected officials now in the whole scheme of the political landscape than Jamaica and other Caribbean islands.
That surprises me.
And it's the same thing. I think I'd imagine go for South Florida.
What about Africa in terms of its presence?
Not as much politically. You have one or two, but not they are not as political as groupings as the ones we just mentioned. The Hispanics and others are clearly ahead. You know, but one of the things I want to mention, I wanted to mention, is that I think the results from last Tuesday's results has indicated to us the importance for us to go back to the grassroots structure. Speaking to Professor Basil Smykel, who once led the Democratic Party here in Brooklyn, in New York, the importance of local elections, PM. You know, we look towards the grandeur and the excitement of presidential elections, but truly, the real power for us as a people, we need to start getting more of our communities elected in positions of authority and power, and we need to recognize that that's where our power base is.
You elect a number of executive officers, don't you, apart from just legislative?
Yes, we do.
I mean, like your Attorney General is elected?
Yes, Attorney General Letitia James, she's elected, yes. And the same thing goes for, yes, apart from our council member, our assemblymatic districts, and our senators, state senators.
What about Secretary of State?
Secretary of State, yes. No, Secretary of State is appointed here in New York.
I see. Do you elect judges in New York?
Yes, we do elect judges, and that's one way that we can make inroads. Kudos go out to Judge Sam Walker. Kudos go to Mr. Semaj's daughter, who is also a judge here in New York. And we have several other
right?
Yes,
Lekim Semaj?
Yes,
right?
man. She's big judge up there in the Bronx area, and we also have several other Jamaicans who are judges as well. But the big one of them all is, of course, Judge Sam Walker.
Yeah. You don't elect law enforcers, though?
No, we don't. Can you imagine?
Well, they do that in some states.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I would show that if people started electing superintendents of police out here.
I wonder how that would go, sir.
You know,
but while you speak of elections, there now, and I have to ask you this question, and you brought it up. And the whole situation has to do, and this is something that many people in the diaspora can say have articulated on. We noticed that there seemed to be almost nothing happening around this whole monarchy situation.
Yeah.
What happened now? What happened?
Well,
Quickly, tell us that now, sir. I'm switching the table on you now.
It is on a slow track. I mean, put it this way. It is something that was agreed from 1995, you know. How long ago is that?
Yeah, I was
from 1995, there was an agreement between government and opposition. But there was a sticking point. The problem was, fine, we're going to get rid of the Queen, we're going to replace the Queen with a president. The president is not going to have executive power, but it's not going to be entirely ceremonial either, because
Correct.
Jamaica has set up a hybrid, which has worked.
Yes.
Where we vest in the Governor General certain quasi-executive powers, like appointing the Independent Electoral Commission,
Correct.
for example. And it really has worked, right? But we had a problem. How are we going to choose that president? At the time, I'm going back to 1995 now as a member of the committee, the PNP, which was the government at the time, said it would have to, they proposed that it be of the entire parliament, House and Senate, voting together. The JLP, which was in the opposition at the time, said no. Parliament, but it must vote separately. And in both cases, it would require a two-thirds majority.
Right.
Our argument was that, look, if one party has an overwhelming majority in the lower house, as the JLP does now, when you put the two houses together, the government side would have the two-thirds. If you do it separately, it means that the person to be appointed would have to be someone that enjoys bipartisan support. So it means that we'd have to meet in the corridors, we'd have to exchange names, we'd have to argue around it until we come up with somebody that both sides would accept. That is what has stymied the thing for all these years, right? I was pleasantly surprised when I did a program on TVJ for the independence celebrations with PJ Patterson. And PJ indicated that that hurdle we can now get around, because he said that the PNP was now prepared to accept the position that the JLP had put forward. Both houses voting separately, so it would have to be a consensus appointment. Now, that having cleared the way, there is no reason why we shouldn't move forward. Now, I can't speak for the government, Irwine. I'm not part of the government. They've appointed a committee. They've appointed a Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. It was announced that they are setting up a new constitutional reform committee or commission. Now, it may very well be, that since almost 30 years have elapsed since we reviewed the Constitution, that maybe we need to review it again. But my argument would be, look, let us not reinvent the wheel. We had agreed on certain things. There is nothing that has happened in the intervening period that would cause us to disagree with those things. Let us move forward with those. If there are other matters that we think require review, well, let's spend the next year, 2 years, 10 years if you want on those. But let us move forward with those things on which we agree. Quite frankly, speaking personally, let's get rid of the Queen and install a Jamaican president. 2, let's get rid of the Privy Council and install the Caribbean Court of Justice, because I'm satisfied with the quality of its judgment.
Snacks, self-care, and
Mr. Seaga had said, for example, before we join the CCJ, let us watch it for 10 years to see how it works. Well, it's been working now for 17 years. And we have had a chance to see how it works. And quite frankly, I'm satisfied with it. But I think the notion of tying the removal of the Queen with a question about the Buggery law and with a question about abortion rights, that's going to confuse up the whole thing. I believe that we should just do it, get it over with, and then we turn our attention to those other issues on which we may not have agreement.
For a while, and just for the interest of our folks. Quick question for you, sir. Does Prime Minister Holness and Mark Golding have similar agreement and understanding as what you just explained between what yourself and PJ discussed? Because if both of these leaders come together in the hallway and can't we just move along? Because when we hear all this bureaucracy, sir, it's not gonna go anywhere. I know we're just about out of time, but what do you say about that, sir?
I don't know. I can't speak for either of them. I don't know to what extent they have been in consultation. But what I would say is that the PJ's revelation in that TV program with me was very profound, was very significant.
Indeed.
And I believe that we should just grab that and move ahead with it.
I agree. I think it will do a lot to bring in a polarized nation together.
Yeah.
But just about our time, sir. Thank you as usual.
Thank you very much, Irwine.
All the best.
Keep warm.
And I still pack to come home.
Yeah, and keep that Jamaican flag as high as you can for me.
Always.
Yeah, okay. Irwine Clare, Jamaica's unofficial ambassador to New York, I call him. That's it for today. We had a discussion on the U.S. midterm elections, what the results mean for us. I will be back here next week, Monday, to do it all over again with another subject this time. But in the meanwhile, have a good week, both here and in New York. God bless you.